Now, they say traditionally that the Premier League, and particularly recently, that the Premier League, there's no easy games in the Premier League. Every game is a battle. You never know, no matter where you are in the table or your opponents are, how tough it's going to be, the intensity of it. And this weekend in particular, I think that was evident. The big teams, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, and indeed Manchester United playing the bottom club, Norwich, all struggled. Just won by the odd goal, 3-1 nils, and in Chelsea's case, a 3-2 with a last-minute penalty. It's a very exciting league, and we're joined now by two of the greatest players we've ever produced and two of the best judges of the game we've ever produced, John Giles and Liam Brady. Liam, let me just ask you about the tightness of this league and the competitiveness of it, which is reflected in the results we saw at the weekend. For example, Liverpool against Aston Villa. Now, there was the Steven Gerrard factor. We might talk about Steven in a minute. 1-0, Mo Salah penalty. A lot of penalties at the weekend. And I thought most of them were okay, but you didn't think all of them were.
No, I didn't think all of them were. I don't know whether you saw Maddison go down against Newcastle. I thought that was a bit of a dive.
I didn't see that game.
Yeah. And Newcastle started the game quite well, and sometimes when you go a goal behind, it makes all the difference. And Leicester won out easy, but there were some really stupid challenges aiming in the box.
Yeah.
It cost Leeds terrible. Leeds played really well at Chelsea.
Yeah.
They gave Chelsea an awful lot of problems. But it was Rafinha who's the main player for Leeds, in my opinion. He's the most creative player, and he has a hand in a lot of goals and chances. And some he made a foul on Rudiger that they didn't have to do, and Click again on Rudiger. You just kicked it from behind, and that was the penalty in the last minute. And Jorginho put the two of them away. But Leeds will be mad with themselves because they really was self-inflicted. Mings against Aston Villa, I thought Mings did foul Salah, and he didn't complain, so that kind of that made up my mind that it was a penalty. I think Liverpool again Eamon created bundles of chances, but
they were denied a couple of good penalty shots.
Yeah, you couldn't deny that they deserved to win.
Yeah.
Man United was a very, very tight game. I thought Norwich played well, but can't take the chances. But I did think it was a foul on Mourinho. Aaron's just put a foul on Ronaldo.
Yeah.
He just pulled him over, and Ronaldo wasn't going to get the ball. So that was another self-inflicted penalty. That didn't have to happen, and Ronaldo put it away really well, didn't he? So. An interesting weekend, and you're right, there's no easy games in the Premiership, and I think this weekend demonstrated that.
Yeah, John, Leeds in particular, I thought, they were missing Phillips, who's their top player, England internationally, a very good player, and the stats show that they don't lose 27% of the time when he plays, they don't lose, but 50-something% of the time when he's not playing, they do lose, actually 60-something%. He's a very important player for him. He wasn't the only senior player missing. But as Liam said, they really played some good stuff. And this young lad, Joe Gelhardt, he's 19. He scored his goal in his first game in the Premier League, and they were only done by a penalty in the 94th minute.
Yeah, well, I think Liam alluded to it there, Eamon. There is a lack of discipline in the Leeds team.
Yeah.
The two penalties that they gave, there's no need to tackle at those issues. Corner kicks and that. Now, they've done extremely well. They got back well into the game. Some of their stuff is really, really good. They've had a lot of injuries. Bamford has been out. Phillips is out. Ayling was out for a long time. So they don't have a big squad. But they did really, really well to get into the position with Chelsea, who we know are a top team, and then give a silly penalty away. Well, two silly penalties, in my opinion.
Yeah.
On Rudiger, Rudiger, who's the defender, as we know, is a bit of big bully, in my opinion. when I see somebody in the paper this morning had him as footballer of the year. But anyway, that's by the way. And Martin Keown said he was like him when he played. I don't remember Martin Keown heading anybody or getting into fights when he played. But just to get back to Leeds, sorry, Eamon, they did extremely, and they do extremely well at times, Eamon, but the discipline from corner kicks, free kicks and all that, and even defending the other day, lets them down.
Yeah.
And it's silly stuff. And I'm surprised that Bielsa standing for it for as long as he has and not stopping it, because they're really, really good at times and exciting and deserved, for what I saw of the match, deserved to get a point from it, Eamon.
Yeah. Liam, it's curious. Bielsa has done a really good job there, it seems, with very little in the way of resources. Can't go into transfer. He's developing players. He's making championship players, good Premier League players. And this problem they have with set pieces defending is really curious for a man of his stature. And he has a great CV in Argentina. It's surprising.
No, well, that's I think that's the sign of a good coach and good organisation. And certainly this year, it's let them down. But, as John has said, they have had so many injuries. Sometimes people coming in, just don't know how to do their job properly, And well, it wasn't set pieces so much against Chelsea. It was just indiscipline.
Yeah.
And that's something that can be easily sorted out. There's so many players gave away penalties this weekend by going to ground. I think going to ground in the box now with VAR, they'll show the slightest touch and the referees will give a penalty. You've got to stay on your feet.
Yes.
You've got to block. You've got to
push them away.
Push the player in a direction that he doesn't want to go.
Yeah.
You've got to be smarter than a lot of these lads are at the moment,
Yeah.
They're giving away silly penalties, and it cost them dear, the Leeds team, because they play some really scintillating football, fast, quick, one touch. Yeah. They had Chelsea in trouble quite a few times. And they're making things difficult for themselves. They're down near the relegation zone, and if they cut out these silly things like John's talked about, indiscipline at corner kicks, not giving silly penalties away, not making unforced errors, they'd be having a comfortable season, Eamon.
Yeah, and the Gerrard goal was a result of a lovely move, which exposed Rudiger, by the way. But we'll talk maybe a bit more about him. But John, Chelsea. Obviously, Thomas Tuchel, a good coach, great start to his Chelsea period, winning the Champions League. They're being hurt, though, by injuries. It underlines, does it not, how good a player N'Golo Kante is, and Kovacic, but Kante in particular. They're also missing Kovacic, Chilwell, Lukaku. It looks like he's just coming off the bench. He mustn't be 100% fit. So they're missing critical players in the team through injury.
Well, they are, Eamon, but they've got a huge panel.
Yeah, they have. Looking at the bench.
Panel, Kante is a terrific player, but if you look at the panel that they have, it's unbelievable, and it's amazing that they're losing goals, because when he came to the club, first of all, that was the main thing that they showed, not conceding goals, silly goals. I'm not saying they're all silly goals, but conceding goals that they have done in recent times. It's amazing, really.
Yeah.
With the players that they have. I mean, Kante is always going to be a miss, Simon, for any team.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. But when you see the panel they have, it's incredibly strong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the substitutes they didn't use, they used Christensen and Hudson-Odoi, but they didn't use Azpilicueta. They had really good players on the bench that they didn't use, and they're sort of, the last few games, they look as if they're having for a team we thought of as outstanding in the first 2 months, 3 months of the season, they really are having a bad time now.
Well, they are by their standards,
by their standards, precisely. Yeah,
giving goals away that you wouldn't expect them to, and it's a bit of a mystery, because when he first came to the club, it was tightening up at the back that really got them where they did last season, which was amazing. Really,
Yeah.
But the lack of discipline. I'm not a Rudiger fan of it. I know I had a little bit of a go him early on.
No, he's not. He ran. There was a melee at the end of the game.
Yes.
A melee. He ran 40 yards to get involved in that. It was nothing to do with him.
No, but he's had it all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what I can't understand. Martin Keown was saying what a great player he was. He's a bit like him. I just see him as a bully and not such a good defender as he's supposed to be. That's the way I see him. I mean, he might be a lot at fault for the defensive situation.
Yeah, and incidentally, he's out of contract at the end of the season, and it's he can walk from January. He can sign a pre-contract deal with another club, and it's said that Real Madrid are willing to pay him $400,000 a week to go there. Yeah. Let's stop talking about Rudiger, John, because I want to talk about something really interesting, and I'll start with you, John, and Liam. We all saw the game. Norwich, bottom of the table against Manchester United. The new Manchester United, Ralf Rangnick is the new German coach. I know I'm starting with you, John, because I know you were bumming him up to me all week, saying how impressed you were by things he said in the press. And you're right in one particular thing. He said he wouldn't be messed around by Paul Pogba or any other player.
Yeah.
But on Saturday at Norwich, they didn't turn up really, and they were blessed. Norwich were very unlucky to lose that game, John.
Yeah, I didn't think they played well, Eamon. And getting back to what I said about him, what I said to you was the comments that he's made on the paper so far publicly has been very good and very sensible. Now, whether he can turn that into good play on the field remains to be seen, Eamon. But I didn't think they played well on Saturday at all. And as you said, I think Norwich were a little bit unlucky not to get something out of the game.
It subsequently emerged in the last 24 hours that a lot of the players have gone down and staff with COVID. So that and Lindelof had to come off because he couldn't breathe properly. So maybe that explains the lackluster and lack of intensity. Yeah.
If they did have that, some of the players have that, it would explain it. But again, it's early days for him, Eamon. I mean, what you mentioned early on about the Pogba situation, he's not taking any nonsense there.
No.
You know, Pogba was away for 3 weeks, Eamon, getting treatment away. In Dubai, you know. So this fellow's saying that you've got to stay at home now to get medical for their own club, the club's medical facilities, which is quite as red. And he said he's not going to try to convince him. He said he doesn't try to convince an unhappy player to stay.
Yeah.
Now, I know they have to do it on the pitch, but that's the start anyway, Eamon, to get the discipline right in the club. Obviously, it's only his second match, so we have to see where he goes. I don't think they played well. I didn't mean to bum him up to you, as you say.
I'm only joking.
No, I know.
Well, you did. You said you were impressed, and I was impressed a little bit. But you were
I was
more
impressed. I was impressed with his comments, Eamon, what he said. That he had this to do and he had that to do. He wasn't saying, well, this is what we're going to do. And we're going, like, it was actually common sense, what he was talking about, that I have to get used to it and all the various things. And like, you get a lot of managers coming in clubs, Eamon, who talk a lot of nonsense straight away. Yeah. So that was only a start from him. Obviously, what we see on the pitch is what it's really all about. And I didn't see anything really, really good or improving that much on the pitch against Norwich. So that's the main thing we've got to do. Yeah. But he did say about Pogba, I don't want any unhappy players to get him out. I mean, Pogba's been a huge nuisance to Manchester United for the last 12 months, Eamon. So it looks like he's not going to take any nonsense in that particular way. But they didn't play well, and Norwich were a little bit unlucky. I mean, a stupid penalty to give away.
Yeah, it was. It was interesting the way Ronaldo. I thought it was a good ball from McTominay, but I don't think Ronaldo was going to quite get there. But he did get himself in a good position on the far post and won his penalty. Liam, the pressing question. The thing about Rangnick is he is one of the Genga pressers. He's said to be the inventor of it. I thought it was Jurgen Klopp, but they say it's him. And the question is, against young boys in the Champions League last Wednesday and against Norwich, I don't think Fernandes, Rashford and Ronaldo can do the pressing thing. Do you?
Well, I think Rashford and who did you mention?
Bruno Fernandes.
I think they can do it. They can do it. They're young enough, and they you know. But Ronaldo's 34 years of age, you know, and he's never really done it. He's got to kind of save all his energy for what happens in around the box. But the other two can certainly do it, and this is what Ranieri's got to get into them. But if there was COVID in the campaign, and that would explain that the pressing wasn't as good as the manager wanted it to be,
Yeah.
And it was telling when
Lindelof.
players weren't getting anywhere near them. Norwich were the team with the energy. Norwich were the team that created the chances, and if it wasn't for De Gea, I think United would have gone home beaten. But
Yes.
De Gea made 2 or 3 really, really great saves. It's going to take him time, but the question mark at Manchester United is what's going to go on at the end of the season. I think they brought this guy in hoping that they can sneak into fourth.
Yes.
Get the team playing a bit better, get them more organised, not give so many goals away, and nick that fourth place, Eamon, because that's what's up for grabs for the Champions League, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and they have a...
Yeah, but what happens beyond that is, well, we've spoke about it before. It's going to be interesting to see what goes on, because it's a very unusual way to run things, to say this guy's going to come in for 6 months and then he might stay as a consultant for another 2 years, and it's all very uncertain, isn't it?
It is, and you can't imagine a top-class coach, say Pochettino, coming in to be the head coach or manager with this guy in post as a general manager. The fact of the matter, John, is now looking at the table, they're in 5th place. They're a point behind West Ham. And they have a really easy run of games. Now, I started by saying the Premier League is competitive, but they don't have to play one of the big 3 until March. And they have a lot of games that look extremely winnable. So in about a month's time, we could be looking at Manchester United pushing to get into the top 3, because David Moyes was very upset that they didn't beat Burnley yesterday. He said, we've got to get our act together, which is great. They are in 4th place. But just in terms of Manchester United, do you think that Liam doesn't agree with me? I don't think Ronaldo and I don't think Fernandes has the energy and the will to press in the way that you'd want. And I don't think Rashford has the inclination. He certainly has the legs. He's only a young fella.
Well, if you talk about the inclination, every player should have the inclination. That's your starting point.
Yeah.
So if they don't have the inclination, they're going to be out. And Fernandes and you talk about Rashford, they're 2 young fellas that should be charging around the pitch, doing what they should be told to do and doing what the manager wants them to do. And if that doesn't happen, then they've got to get out. In Ronaldo's case, Ronaldo's never pressed even in his heyday, when he was a young fella. So you have to live. I mean, if you're going to have Ronaldo, you're going to have to live with Ronaldo, not pressing.
Yeah.
I mean, the game is not all about pressing.
No.
I mean, there's getting on the ball and doing things and scoring goals, which goals going back to Jimmy Greaves and all the great goal scorers are in their day. You live with them and without them doing the pressing.
Yes.
I mean, pressing hasn't just started. You mentioned that he's one of the main guys for pressing.
Yeah.
I mean, you get that in football, but there was pressing going on in England in my day.
Well, there was Jack Charlton certainly brought it into the Irish team, and Liam was part of that setup as well.
No, I couldn't press. But.
Jack only had one. What was that?
You could do a few other things.
Well, Jack, I know we're having a laugh at it, but Jack was one-dimensional in what he did. It was all pressing. Jack wouldn't have Liam.
Yeah.
Actually, he told me he wouldn't have Bobby in his team unless he did what he told him to do.
Yeah.
And that was Jack. That was one-dimensional of pressing. But Jack was kicking the ball up in the pitch and people chasing after it.
Yeah.
But in this fella's case, I mean, if Rashford shouldn't need him, or Fernandes shouldn't need a new manager to get them pressing.
No,
they should be doing that way. And I think the talk about this lad was pressing might be exaggerated, but I think there's more to him than that. This becomes part of the game over the years, as you know, the modern game, that the pressing and the pressing and pressing. But going back over the years, some of the great teams pressed all the time. Liverpool in their heyday with Ian St. John and all these guys. Leeds at our best pressed all the time. So, there's more to it than that. But if you're saying that
he hasn't invented it, has he? He hasn't invented
no.
anything. So that's why. Go back to the personnel in the Manchester United team. it does look like Fernandes is sulking a bit. Would you say, John? He looks like
he's been sulking for Liam. Yeah. He's been sulking for a while. He hasn't tried a leg. But when with Solskjaer's in the last 4 or 5 matches with Solskjaer, he never tried a leg. Yeah. And he's the first on the telly saying what we should be doing, and we should be doing this and he's not doing it himself.
I'll tell you what it might be, Liam, and I agree with you. He likes being the man, and when Ronaldo, who's a Portuguese hero, since Ronaldo came, he's not the man at all. Maybe that had an effect on him psychologically.
Well, yeah, I would agree. He's made a few goals for Ronaldo all the same.
Yeah, I'm not saying he doesn't like Ronaldo, but he's not the man anymore.
No, but I think John brought this up a few months ago. They didn't play well together in the Portuguese team, did they, John?
No. Well, he was left out of the Portuguese team, Fernandes.
Yeah. So I don't know. He seems to be moody at the moment. I don't know whether he's looking for the door as well himself. I don't know. But,
he's not doing his stuff.
Like when he came into the Manchester United team, and I think John pointed out that he wasn't really a midfield player. He was kind of in between the midfield and the front line. But he didn't have to deliver when he came in, He
did, yeah.
Scoring goals and making goals. But he's not the same player since Ronaldo has arrived at the club.
That's right. He was very much a leader when he came in, I thought.
Well, he was the one player who was standing up to the plate. You could rely on him week in, week out to do something, Eamon.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Certainly lately, and I watched him on Saturday, he wasn't that interested, didn't look that interested to me.
Now, John, Liverpool 1-0 against Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa. Gerrard going back, got a standing ovation from the Liverpool crowd before the game. He has proved to be a very promising young coach, and his team, since he's been at Villa, this is the first game they've lost. They drew 1 and won 2. They won 1-0 Liverpool, but they could have scored more goals. They could have had a couple of more penalties. I want to ask you about Gerrard because, funny, I read that Didi gave an interview to Racing Post at the weekend. He said, and you said it to me last week, you never thought Steven Gerrard would make a manager. And Didi said the same thing, and Didi was very close to him, pally with him. Didi said the same thing. I never thought he'd be a manager because he wasn't that kind of player,
Well, Didi would know him better than any of us would. If he played him, I'm only looking from the outside, Eamon, and looking at him as a player. I thought he was a terrific player as a goal-scoring midfield player. I don't think he actually was a real midfield player, Eamon.
Yeah.
But I always thought it was a bit more about himself than the team, Eamon, to be quite honest. And he was a terrific player. I mean, the goals he scored for Liverpool were terrific goals and very, very important goals. But that's the way I saw him. As a goal-scoring player, I didn't see him as a midfield player in terms of getting on the ball and creating it, from midfield and dictating the game.
Yes.
I didn't see him like that. And usually when you see players like that as a player, they don't look like managerial material.
Yeah.
No, I don't know him at all. And I've heard players talking about him that played with him and gave me a different impression on him, that he was much harder than he looked and more ambitious than he looked. So I'm surprised at his comments on what he's done as a manager, which is very, very good. I'm just surprised at them, Eamon. But
Liam, your take on that, Liam?
Well, he actually lost 2, Eamon. He lost to Man City as well. So he's won 3 and lost 2. And the 2 defeats we had against Liverpool and Man City, which, is understandable because they are, they're the best teams in the country alongside Chelsea. So he's done well. I watched when he was at Rangers and things like that. Sometimes I thought he was ever so critical of players, like publicly, when they didn't do well, particularly in his first year.
Right.
I think he was still getting the grips with the situation. And I thought, criticising players publicly, but it worked, and he turned things around at Rangers, and he stopped Celtic winning 10 in a row.
Yes.
So far, so good for Steven Gerrard, I would have said. We talked about him, I think it was last week or a couple of weeks ago. It'll be interesting to see what he does in the transfer market, because I think they're going to back him, because Villa, mid-table, they don't want to be mid-table. The owners don't want to be mid-table. The fans don't don't think they're a mid-table side. So the expectation is there is at least the top 6. Now, to do that, he's got to improve the squad. You know, one of the best things to how to judge a manager is the players he buys and the one he gets out, the ones he lets go. So I think it's all going to unfold whether Gerrard is going to be a really top manager. And, you know, people were, in fact, he went back to Liverpool this weekend. People were talking about him being a manager of Liverpool in the future. Funny, I thought Klopp made a very good comment. He said, well, I'm not going to be here the rest of my days. You know, somebody's going to have to come in after I'm gone, you know. So I think if it's going to be Gerrard, I think it's going to, can he get that Villa team into the top 6, top 7 in the league?
Yeah, just if you would repeat for our listeners, Liam, we were talking yesterday and you told me something Trapattoni said to you about great teams and great players.
Well, Trapp was obviously, he used to say, you know, what makes a great manager? And I'd say, I don't know what makes a great manager, Trapp. And he'd say, great players. You have to have great players, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, Steven Gerrard's going to have to buy well, you know. Like Arteta, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about Arsenal.
Yes.
Arteta, I think the jury's still out because he hasn't bought well, Eamon. He hasn't bought players that have really improved the team.
Yes.
Now, Gerrard hasn't had the chance to do that because when he got the job, the transfer window's closed. But now it's going to be open up in January.
Right.
Okay, he might not be able to do exactly what he wants in January, but I think that's going to be a big factor in judging whether Gerrard's going to be, you know, go right to the top and be a Liverpool manager in the future.
I think what Trapattoni said there, sorry, just to come in on the Trapattoni, of course, it's getting having great players, but it's getting them. The judgment comes.
Yes.
Liam obviously knows. The judgment comes in getting the players in who are great players, Eamon.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
In judging, the judgment, if he's allowed to judge, if any manager is allowed to judge it, this is what I want.
Yeah.
Right? It's how many times you see, whether it be Arteta or anybody else, not buying great players, Eamon.
Yes.
It's easier not to buy a great player than it is to buy a great player.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at whoever's doing it at Liverpool, getting Klopp in and the money and these players.
Yeah, especially at the present moment, because, I mean, for example, in Arsenal's case, they bought this lad White from Brighton for 40 million. And he's very unconvincing at that price. And I know I've spoken to Liam about that off air before. He's not quite demonstrated yet why he's worth 40 million.
Well, there's about 3 or 4 of them, I mean, you know. We have Pepe, who cost 72 million. Now, Arteta didn't buy him.
No.
But he's bought Partey in the middle of the field.
Yes.
I think there's a question mark there. He's bought Ben White, as you mentioned, is actually 50 million.
Yeah.
The goalkeeper has done really well for him. I think that's been a surprise to me because he hadn't been. He let in a lot of dodgy goals, I thought, Sheffield United, but since he's been with us, Aaron Ramsdale has been really, really good. I like the Japanese right back up to a point.
Yeah.
But Arteta hasn't improved the team with his signings to push us into that top 4. You know what I mean?
Yes, indeed.
And that's what Gerrard is going to be judged on because I do think they're going to give him money.
Right. John and Lee, both of you now, I want to talk about Liverpool. They kept 2 clean sheets the last 2 games, which Liverpool fans would be delighted about because their weakness really has been the giving away goals. And of course, last season was a write-off because of injuries. I think they're the most potent and talented attacking team in the country, John. Would you agree with that?
No, nobody could disagree with that, Eamon. I mean, the goals they scored and the individual goals they scored. Of course, Liverpool are a brilliant team. They've conceded a few goals, but not many. But they're up there with the 3 lads, probably the favourites, I would imagine, in the 3 top teams in Chelsea, Manchester City, and themselves.
Yes.
I mean, they're just a terrific team, terrific players, of course. And getting back to Liam's point there of Trapattoni saying getting the players in, obviously they bought extremely, extremely well over the last few years to get them in the position that they're in. There's no wasted money there.
No, absolutely. And whoever signed Mo Salah for 30 million or whatever it was, maybe less, deserves a bonus. Just to say, Liam, Manchester City 1-0 again. They don't have that prolific goal scorer, 20-odd goal a year man, but...
No, we spoke about this last week, didn't we?
Indeed, yeah.
It was evident again this weekend. And they were up against 10 men for an early stage. There was another stupid sending off. Did you see that?
Yes.
Raul Jimenez. Did you see it, John?
Yes.
Not getting away from the ball just after he'd been booked. How stupid can you get, That was ridiculous. But I didn't think that was a penalty now, Eamon. I have to say, Man City got a penalty there.
Right.
The ball, I thought, hit Moutinho under the armpit. Didn't hit him on the arm at all.
I agree
and
with
I think
you.
they got that one wrong. VAR got that one wrong.
Yeah,
I
very much agree with you.
That's the most contentious thing, is the penalties. Has he been touched? Is it deliberate handball? But I thought they got that wrong. But Manchester
but Liam, I tell you before,
definitely missing an out-and-out goal scorer.
Yeah.
But just on the penalty, I mean, there was a fellow called Kilman. Was it? Did you see the match, Liam?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
I mean, there was a dead penalty before halftime.
Yeah, he put his hand to the ball, didn't he? He put his hand to the ball. Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing, but I mean, I said that Cody afterwards, he was saying how ridiculous the penalty was and what I expect players to do, and he said it cost them the game. But Jimenez, he never mentioned Jimenez being sent off. Jimenez being sent off cost them the blooming game.
Especially when you're
doing what he did.
Especially when you're putting 10 men behind the ball. Anyway,
Eamon, it was Jimenez. The way Lima's mentioned it there already, it was just stupid. But Cody, was saying, and he said, we're behind him 100%.
Right.
Well, I tell you what, if I was the manager, I know I wouldn't be behind him. I'd be taking his flipping head off for doing what he did. Jimenez cost him the game, definitely.
Okay, John and Liam, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. We're very grateful to John Giles and to Liam Brady, to you for listening.